Well, it's time to wrap up August. And let me tell you, book of the month, it's a close one. It's a real barn burner. Ladies and gentlemen, miscreants, mollifiers, varlets, my new favorite word, varlets. I learned it from Our Lady of Paris. That's where I read it, and I'm gonna use it forever now. I am the anonymous librarian. You can call me Al. And welcome to the show, to another reading wrap up of the month, this time the month of July in the year of our Lord 2026. I always liked it when they said it in the old time. In the year of our Lord. Yes. I'm dancing. I'm having fun now. But without any further ado and mollification, I'm not like you, I don't try and mollify all the time. Let's get into it. And let's start, as always, with the non-fiction. Non-fiction. First of all, I picked up Jane Austen, a biography by Elizabeth Jenkins. This book is written as if it is a Jane Austen novel itself, or at that era of writing. The author decided, even though this was written in the 1920s, I believe 1930s, it does have that same cadence as a Jane Austen novel does. Which is a cool idea, writing the biography of somebody in the very style they were writing. And that could have been a mess, but honestly, Elizabeth Jenkins pulled it off. This was really fun to read, and then when she has that such little stabs at the more modern stuff, which at this point is 80 years old since this one was written, you can still recognize a lot of it and kind of giggle, laugh, have a nice laugh about it. But what I really enjoy about it is it does go into Jane's life, but I mean there was not a lot of information beyond a lot of letters that their family made public. And though the parts about her life and stuff are interesting and how it's a lot of like, okay, so she just went to visit her family here, there. It's good, it's interesting, fine. But where this really soars and what Elizabeth Jenkins, I want to say Perkins for some reason, I believe Elizabeth Perkins, that's the actress, right? Elizabeth Jenkins does so great is that when she starts analysis, the analysis of each of the 6 novels, and even Sanditon and the shorter stuff like Lady Susan. It's amazing, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember feeling like that. I just couldn't put it into words, and then Elizabeth Jenkins puts it perfectly into words. It's a beautiful love letter to Jane Austen and Jane Austen's work, and just how great Jane Austen really was, and how one of a kind, and how different her way of storytelling is to almost anybody we've seen before. Nobody kind of did like the slice of life family drama and love the way Jane Austen did. It felt very real and yet completely entertaining. It felt like you were just seeing your neighbors' lives, all from this era obviously, but so entertaining, so compelling. And that just lifts this book up to something special and wonderful. And Elizabeth Jenkins just did a great job. If you're a fan of Jane Austen and you want to learn more about it, you're not going to do any better than this. This is fantastic because you're going to enjoy the writing, you're going to recognize it, the humor of the author, all of that thing. And just the brilliant analysis of all of the works and what made Jane so different in her writing from her contemporaries and everybody that came after and before her. Very unique, one of the truly great, unique artists of that era and of all time that has transcended and lived on and will probably live on forever. Fantastic. After that, I picked up Captive Courageous by Maxwell Lee, South African Prisoners of War, World War II. This book just solidifies again that there's so many stories about World War II that you can never have all of them, and they're fascinating and different and strange and everything. It goes from the harrowing to like the early days when POWs were captured and they were on like first marches where they barely got food or water and they had to be marched through deserts in North Africa or even through Italy and Germany later on when it was like at the end of the war and they were trying to get him away from this armies coming in. The horrible marches, the definitely atrocious ways they were treated. And then even into the camps, some of the camps, especially in the early part of this book, you're like, it's a lot of horrible, horrible stuff that you read. And then it changes. Then it comes like, okay, when the camps were settled and the Red Cross was getting in and they were getting food, what were the people doing to pass their time? And it is fascinating how soldiers just found a way to entertain themselves, to keep themselves busy. Education, a lot of them were studying stuff. They like people that know stuff was teaching others like law, medicine, all of that. They started doing art shows, theater shows, that dances where they where obviously some of the prisoners had to be the ladies, and it's like yeah, and the sport was very common there, and of course finding ways to mess with the guards and also trying to escape. And then that's a big part of the second half of this book deals with that, with people escaping or attempts to escape and how difficult that was. It's fascinating learning the stuff about especially the soldiers who were running around in Italy and how the Italian peasants really were on their side and helping them most of the time. Yeah, there were some that snitched on them, but even with all that help, how hard it was just to get through the German lines and get back to the Allies, and how many people just got recaptured again and again. Like there's a couple of there's like I think 3 or 4 guys here that's the stories about how they escaped for like 3 or 4 times but got captured again. Like the one guy got captured 5 times again. But it's like this is a book with small anecdotes. Every chapter has its own little story and stuff. The unique devices that they had to build just to do the stuff they had, how they made their own newspapers and the loopholes they had to jump through in the camps just to get that, how information was processed and going through. It is just a fascinating capture of both human atrocity and the human spirit under severe strain and what it can do and how it can come out. It's almost impossible. It's such a wide spectrum of everything that went on in these camps and with the escapes that it's almost impossible to really analyze it. It's just, there are endless stories, fascinating, strange stuff. Like even a boxing match between an Italian, I think it was a light heavyweight champion, and a Zulu from South Africa that they wanted because they wanted to put the Italian guy over, like showing how, yeah, no, Italians are the best. And then a Zulu from South Africa that never boxed in his life before, they even didn't feed him ahead of time. And then he knocked out the Italian anyway. And then the Italians would very quickly shut us down, get it away. Fascinating stuff like, and then there's like also nerve-wracking stuff like when guys are being shipped and the ship they are being, the POWs, the ship they are being taken over from North Africa to Italy gets hit by torpedoes or even by planes and it starts sinking and they have to abandon ship in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea and get to land. And whoa, their stories are endless, fascinating, brilliant. And then obviously they were shot down by their own people because they didn't know there was prisoners of war in the ships because the Italians were not flying the flags, or the German, either the Italians were not flying the flags, show, oh, this is a prisoner of war thing, whatever. Which is, it's just wild stories. People falling in love. There's everything you can think of the human experience, you will find in this book. And it's fascinating and brutal and well worth to read to learn more about just what people went through in such a crazy time, and especially through the camps of World War II. And how very differently POWs were treated to compared to what Jews were treated in the concentration camps or the Russian soldiers were treated. It is a stark difference. And yeah, it shows you how strange the German mentality and the Nazi mentality specifically was of that era. well worth picking up, especially if you are fascinated by World War II, and who isn't almost. Definitely pick that up. Find it. It's a very compelling, interesting, lesser told story about what war goes like, POWs and their experiences. Now let's move on to the mundane fiction. Mundane fiction. And first of all, I picked up a South African classic, an Afrikaans classic, Kringe in 'n Bos by Daleen Matthee, also known as, it is available in English, Circles in a Forest. So you can definitely pick this up. I had kind of read it before, but not the whole thing. It was subscribed to us, prescribed to us in high school to read in our final year. And I mean, I was like, no, but I want to read my fantasy books. So why do I want to read this? I'm going to read my fantasy books in my spare time. So I never actually finished this. I only read the stuff we read in class, or what was like, you need to know these chapters for the test. But the parts I read always stayed with me. I'm like, no, I need to go back because that's actually good. It's a coming of age tale, and as well as a tale of class differences. To some geek, if not necessarily race differences so much, although it definitely does lean towards that, but more like ethnicity, the differences in ethnicity and how people are treated because of this, but heavily on class. Like, the main character is the son of a woodcutter in the Knysna Forest. This is it plays out from 1860 to 1889. It's over a 30-year period. 1860 to 1889 is when this plays off. Our main character is 30 years when we first meet him, but then we have flashbacks about his life growing up. He was the son of a woodcutter in the Knysna bush. And it's about his life growing up in the bush and then being introduced into the bigger city of Knysna, which is really a town. Just a strange juxtaposition of these two different lives going on right next to each other, and how the people of the town look down upon the bush people, the people that live in the bush, the woodcutters from the bush. And now, no, they were seen as that, but they still needed them for their wood and all. But how they were exploited as well, and him seeing this exploitation of the hard work his father and his family is doing, and it kind of leaves him, a breakup between him and his family, and he starts living more in the city. He ends up being a guy not accepted where he comes from in the bush and not accepted in the city. It's one of those stories, right? He doesn't quite fit in anywhere, and he struggles, and he's angry, and he's trying to revolt, and he's trying to be what's fair. And of course he makes friends along the way. It's all of the, everything kind of expected. I don't want to go too much in it. He falls in love with a girl he shouldn't fall in love with. Who hasn't been there? Who has not been there? And seeing this, the world through his eyes and experiences, and how he had this as a startled kid to a jaded adult. It's just an amazing story, well told, with vivid imagery. This is, elephants play a big role in this because they were in a Knysna forest, and it also the destruction of the natural world for the exploitation of man is a very big part. Elephants represented a lot. There's a main elephant here called Old Foot is the best way I can translate it. I don't know. I'll be curious how they translated that name into the English. But there's definitely this strange relationship between our main character and this bull elephant. And it tells this infinite, almost magical world, and the intelligence of the natural world and the elephants. And it's so many themes and beauty and how it all works together. Daleen Matthee just does it perfectly, and every beat is you feel it, and it's really beautiful. And I really, for Afrikaans, it's the best prose in Afrikaans I've read. How that translates into an English translation, I don't know, but I'm sure it should be pretty always. And the story beats are just some of them are a lot like you would expect in a story like this, but still it's done with such flourish and such unique in this unique world that you cannot help but enjoy yourself. The gold prospectors coming into the forest because they think there's going to be gold and all the things, and how you just see the corrosion of the natural world around him, and how this hurts the main character, who it's like he's caught between two stubborn sides that believe this is the way you do things and does it, and then he's just as stubborn as them about trying to prove him wrong, and it's just brilliantly done. You will get depressed sometimes in this book because it does put our main character especially, through a lot, and some of the other characters, and just human nature. A South African classic for a reason. Really pick this up. It's a wonderful book. It deserves the status it's got in South Africa and under the Afrikaans emblem especially. Oh, after that, I had one more non-fiction book I picked up. And for the first time this year, I finally read a Stephen King book. How did I? This is a crime against humanity that it took me this long to pick up a Stephen King book this year. Pet Semetary by Stephen King. I was expecting like a horror, chilly, family thriller horror thing. It is there, but what this is really, this is mostly a family drama. A very intimate family drama. And for most of this book even, yes, there are elements being put in of the horror that will show up later. It's a family drama that disintegrates into horror. That's what happens. But that's really much later on than you'd expect. And you just get to live with this family and the struggles and the beauty, and you really fall in love with them and see the love between them and just how they go. And they still have their fights and they still have their problems, but they are a family and a unit. And then obviously at some point something happens and it dissolves into horror. But you care so much about this family that when stuff starts going wrong, it just hits so hard. The way Stephen King constructed this, brilliant. There are some grisly scenes in here. It's not the grisly stuff I've read, but there are the horrors of what can happen to people and what we are willing to do when the worst starts happening. King's characters, the family, is such a great group of people that you get so intimately, and their friends close to the family. As with Judd and his wife, who are the neighbors across the street. Love them. But also, and Stephen, the way King puts on all these little things that will pay off and like build. Jane Austen also used to do this, and it's strange to have King and Jane Austen, but there's a very natural feel to the progression of their stories and their characters, and like every little thing comes around or has a purpose, and it's exploited in every way that it can be, and you gotta love. You gotta love it. If I have one complaint, and I don't say there's one part in this thing that I feel like it feels long. It feels like that takes way longer than it should. But I also understand why it takes long, because it keeps building the suspense for this thing so much more than you can think. But you're like, okay, but it's definitely gonna work. But Stephen does a great job in thinking, yeah, no, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna happen. And just going into this thing, how difficult it is. So it's like the thing that bothered me, I think was meant to bother me. I can't even blame that. When it blows up, it blows up completely. And when the horror starts happening, there are scenes here that really freaked me out. King has some descriptions here that's so vivid and that I could see so clearly in my mind's eye, and it's like, hey, that thing's gonna show up in my nightmares. I know that thing will eventually start showing up in my nightmares, and I did not need that in my life. But it's really the emotional punch that this thing hits that makes it so brilliant. It's really a part one and a part two. And the part one got you so invested in these people that when the part two and the thing happens, it's like, and then it's just to see it all fall apart and disintegrate and just getting worse and worse. There's scenes that maybe you stay, it's not like in even the supernatural or any of the strange stuff. It's often like in the things between two characters and just the degeneration and explosion and things just going bad. There's especially one where two people that you would not expect to start a fight you would expect it as well. But you wouldn't think that would be the place it happens. And the way it happens, yeah. When things go bad, they go real bad. Well worth the read. If you go in just expecting horror, no. The horror will come, but it's a family drama at its heart. And that is what makes it so unique and so poignant even. Is it my favorite Stephen King book I've read so far? No. Is it maybe the most emotionally gut punchy and the most emotionally resonant one? Probably. This is a wonderful book. Amazing. Whoa. And now, of course, it is time for the fantasy and sci-fi. The first one I had picked up was George R. R. Martin's A Feast of Crows, the fourth book in A Song of Ice and Fire. Now everybody always says like A Storm of Swords is the best. A criticism I will have of this one maybe is that it does feel very slow. In the beginning especially. It feels very, very slow. Martin puts a lot of like new pieces on the table. It's interesting. The new characters and storylines he puts in, their stories go pretty faster. Especially the Iron Islands. That moves at a decent clip and that's really exciting to read. But then the stories we already know, the people we've already been introduced to, these ones go much slower. Especially like Sam's journey in this. If you look at this bigger book and you see where Sam starts and where Sam ends the story, it's like, wait a minute. In the whole, that's the whole, but it's still very compelling and it's still very interesting where he ends up in the things he sees. So it is slow, but it does justify itself by the end because you're so invested in a lot of these storylines. The Iron Island stuff is for me a standout in this. It's a standout in this. And we for the first time get a perspective from two female characters that we've never had perspectives from, although we already know them. And it was really good seeing both and how they kind of juxtapose. It's Cersei and it's Brienne. It's really well done, and the mistakes that the characters start to make, and it's brilliant. Like, it's obvious to us because we kind of have eyes, and some of us also because we know more of what the story is because we watch the TV show. Although this and the TV show is so far apart from each other, it's not even, it's insane. But like, how they believe this is actually the smart choice they're making, and they're good choices and stuff. And then other people start saying, and that's a terrible choice. And then how things start to blow up in people's faces. The last part of this book I loved. It got so interesting, so good, and really crazy. I'll say it's not, I don't think it's as good as Storm of Swords, but it was never meant to be as good as Storm of Swords. But I will still prefer this over the first two books, A Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings. I love the many chess pieces and then the craziness that happens. But it also does feel like this is a transition book into more stuff. It doesn't feel like a complete story, but I mean, Martin even says that in the beginning. This is kind of a part one to a two-part book to get to the whole story. That's still part of the bigger series. Yeah, and I've seen The Dance of Dragons. That book is thick as craziness. You will definitely miss the characters that your storylines are not saying that you'll only pick up in Dance of Dragons. But a lot of the characters you do see in here does make up for it and does justify it. At least by the end. Even if you don't feel like it at the beginning, by the end you'll be like, I understand. That was great. Really enjoyed that. It is just such a beautiful, visceral world. And there's so many fascinating, interesting, even minor characters. And there's characters that the show never had in, and I'm like, how did you not put that character in? Even if it was just from one episode. Just to me, there's such a great character, it's such a fascinating point of view. But I mean, yeah, they made their choices and the show ended up the way the show ended up, and the books are going the way the books are going. Still enjoying A Song of Ice and Fire, and I can't wait to get to the fifth book. It's well worth your time. It's, like I said, a bit slow in the beginning, but the end just wonderful. When Martin stuff starts coming together, it comes together like few other things. And all the storylines end on a very interesting. Whoa, I have to read more and have to find out what happens after this. Which got me nervous for A Dance of Dragons, because if A Dance of Dragons has the same problem and we don't know what's happening after that, yeah. Now I'm starting to get more why people are so angry that Winds of Winter is never coming out. But after that I had a few more days and I picked up Solo Leveling Volume 5. Which is like, so nice and short, with big letters and stuff. I just breeze through this. That was so much fun. So this is fully into territory I don't know anything about, because this is going way past the show. And I was like, ooh, my biggest question in the beginning was, without the images of the show in my head, will I still find it as compelling? Will I be able to form these images just from, because it's a very bare bones way that he tells the story, but he does give you enough information. I will say I was totally, and this was my favorite volume so far, easily. Not only does it expand the world a lot more, it really does take a bigger stage onto the world stage. Stuff, you see more stuff happening in other countries as well. What is really going on here, and what's really going on with Jinwoo, is fascinating. And just when you think you're gonna get answers, yeah, you get some answers, but they just lead to the answers lead to way bigger questions like what? And then the major conflict in this one, the major set piece, action, extravaganza, blow up, whatever you're gonna call it, battles. I can't wait to see them animate that. It must be insane. Talk about the most OP character ever. But then they still find ways to make it for him a battle, which is just makes it crazy. And there's some revelations that, as I said, just lead to way more questions. But like, now I really want to know. And of course, since it says light novels, it leaves off on a giant cliffhanger, or no, it doesn't, not necessarily a cliffhanger. It sets up a major conflict that's about to start in the next volume. You're like, whoa. Okay, yes, you are getting me to want to pick up the next volume as quickly as possible. That is brilliant. And the writing just gets better in this. You can definitely tell it's more like, and there's less over explaining of stuff, although it sometimes still happens. You connect better with the characters. The characters, you really start to care for them. And then when characters walk into a situation where you're like, oh, no. Also, it starts with a really brutal thing. A really brutal thing that happens. And it really sets up how dangerous this world really is. For the actual world, for the real world as well. And then another thing like that, similar, even bigger scale happens later on. We start to this is not just, this is getting out of hand and way more dangerous. It sets the stakes so much higher for what is to come. What is insane for me is there's so many little teaser stuff that's still like, you will think, oh, definitely that stuff's going to come in big here. No. No, those characters you thought, oh, I'm definitely seeing them in this season, in this volume, because there was a tidbit of, nope. No, you're not going to see them. You're not going to see them. Chuang really keeps the mystery of everything that goes on close. If you've been a fan till this point, this is not the point where you're going to jump off. This is just going to get you more into it, more excited, and it just makes me excited for the third season of Solo Leveling, whenever we're going to see that. I'm assuming next year. But then again, anime has their own way of just taking way too long to show up. Well, now that's the things I read, and now there's only one thing left to do, and that is decide which one is my book of the month. And I feel like there's 3 contenders, and it was pretty close, and they're all for different reasons. A Feast of Crows, Pet Semetary, and Kringe and the Boss, Circles in the Forest. And in the last 2 weeks that I've been going through, like, at each time one of these I was considering like, no, it should be one thing. This one, just for the scale of it and the new worlds and just the giantness and the interesting stuff that Martin does with this world. Family drama and horror done to such a perfection, and the gut punches you feel for this because you cared so much. A wonderful coming of age tale that just hits hard, and also same thing, gut punches and the exploits between the two worlds and the two, the juxtaposition of the people in the town and the people in the forest. Now this plays out. This one was the first one that I decided, no, it can't be that one. As much as I love it, it can't be that one. It has to be one of these two. And I don't know. This is going to be my kind of on the day thing. This could easily change later in the year. But I think for now, I'm going to go with this. Kringe and the Boss by BMT. Maybe I'm just doing this because I'm trying to favor a South African book here. But I'm actually going to go with this one. And by a hair's breadth. It should be a tie, but I don't like doing ties. So we'll give it to this one. you could see that the Leon Mattia did a lot of research before telling this story. She even has a bibliography at the back. How many books have like reference? How many fiction books have references in the back? And you can tell just the amount of research she did into this, and how well a story is, and how you feel connected. Me as a South African, I really felt connected to the story. I really felt I recognize these characters. I recognize people like these characters in my life still, and the things they do. And I mean that can be general now. There's certainly people in Pet Semetary I also recognize, but not quite as much as this. Not as quite as much as this. And just the conflict between them, and how this is a very South African story, and you can see still a lot of things South Africa deals with today still in this, and it just worked. It's a classic for a reason, and I loved it. Kringe the Boss, the Leon Mattia, my book of the month for July of 2026. If you didn't know the year we were living in, or if you're watching this somewhere in the future like a madman, because I know most of these views are going to come years from now, when people decide to finally be obsessed with me. Not like now when nobody cares. But one day you're going to be obsessed with me. Then you're going to want to watch it. Nah? Oh yes. Oh yes. So that is it. That is everything. How was your July reads? What was your book of the month for July? Please let me know. Any of these sound interesting to you? You think I got anything wrong? Man, pick up Circles in the Forest. I would love someone to read the English version of this and tell me how that thing, and if we were able to get the same things out, how does something go? How does the translation change the stuff in it that you might experience? I should probably one day try and find a good, like the definitive translation of this in English, and read it as well, and see how that experience. But that's it. No more. I am the Anonymous Librarian. You can call me L. You don't have to call me at all. But you know what you can do? You can leave a comment below. I wouldn't mind. Tell me something, anything. It could be about books, it could be about just me being an idiot, which is wrong, I'm a genius, but it's fine. I mean, I know people love calling geniuses idiots, so that's fine by me. I sometimes call people, I've called people think a genius is idiots, but that's because I'm a genius, and I know who's an idiot. There's a difference between us. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm losing now. No, I feel I'm pushing you away now. Let me pull you back. Leave a comment. Like, subscribe, put on the notifications, share it with the whole world. Don't be greedy. Don't be stingy. Share this. Everybody should be allowed to enjoy my wonderfulness. Don't you think? Don't you think? Don't you think everybody should bask in me in this journey I'm taking with books and literature? Of course you do. Of course you do. No. If you want to argue, I don't want to listen to that. Bye. Bye. Bye.